going to put a couple of blocks underneath. These will get fastened to the underside of the hump and then fixed to this board. And then the hump will sit on top. And I'm now going to use this previous model, which I know is quite close to the centre part of the butt that I originally made. I'm going to mark that out, draw it out on cardboard, just up off the bottom here. I'll cut that shape out and then sit it over the top before I transfer the final shape to the other piece of melamine to run as the main piece through the centre. So we've got the template that fits on there quite snugly. Set the height. Righto, so we're going to go for the mighty whistle. Let's give that a shot. Anyway, let's crack on and cut the shape out. Let's just hit this with the paper, and every now and then I'm just going to give it a wipe down. We're only going around the outside edge of this, but just put it right on there. Water just helps lubricate it, so you're not sanding through it in a hurry or creating heat or anything. Certainly just helps. Sure we get a nice smooth surface. So I'm just going to do this for, it's probably 2-3 minutes on this, just making sure I cover all of it. Doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to put a lot of wax on this, which will fill in very fine imperfections. I don't want to go crazy on it. I don't want to take off all that good paint that we've just put on there, so really I'm probably very close to being done. Watch to the end, why not? Just remember, no matter what you're doing, you're always going on that sort of back and forwards, but always go across it as well on the 45 degree angle. Spin it around, keep it moving, don't be lazy. And there you go, so that little imperfection showing through pretty quick. So anyway, just sort of, you can see we've going across it on that 45. You can go this way as well, and you can go straight backwards and forwards, but it certainly pays to go on that angle. You'll get a better result. So sometimes it seems a bit counterintuitive to be going on weird angles and things when you want to focus on a particular spot, but you end up creating flats and things like that. So anyway, put the white down. Yeah, that's good enough for me. Good enough for me, it's good enough for you, I reckon. So let's crack on with that. So what I'm going to do is hold my rag a couple of times. Just make sure. We're going to wipe this down. Oh, you can just see the paint's so thin, you've got to be very careful as to how aggressive you are with it. So we'll just dry it off and just board it clean. Now, just something I have seen a lot of guys do is they put their centerpiece on before they start putting the mould release. And what tends to happen if you do that, and this is my opinion, so I'll tell you what I do is, or what I'm going to do and show you how I do it, is I'm going to lay 6 or 8 coats of 8 coats of the coating on here of the mould release, and then I'm going to put that centre spine on. Now what that means is that any let's call it ooze, any penetration of the coatings that you're about to put on, the resins and the fiberglass and things, any penetration of that, and you've got to remember that stuff gets into everything. So if you go and put the centre piece on before you wax it, before you put a really good coat of wax on there, it's going to get in between potentially, and wherever it gets in there, it just bleeds very, very thin. You go and take that off, and you'll literally peel parts of your mould off. So I'm hoping, I'm not an expert at this, that's for sure, but my experience is, yeah, definitely lay the wax on your mould first before you put the spine on, the centrepiece that you're going to use for your split mould, create the centre, because you've got to take that off to then do the other side, and when you take that off you end up doing damage. So wax it all first, get that wax on there. You can still fill the little voids that you need to, and we'll go through that. So just a tip, guys. Right, so we have our mould release. I just lift the cap, got that ready to open up to show you. So we've got mould release. It's a proper mould release, obviously. Not cheap, but you'll get a ton of work out of something like this. Lots of parts, and we probably won't even touch the surface, so to speak. Oh yeah, I'm glad I got that ready so the lid will come off easy. Right, there is your applicator pad. There's your wax. So be generous, get it on there. It's quite cool in here because I'm a sook and I run an air conditioner. Outside it's 27 degrees at the moment. So let's get some wax on our applicator pad. Just keep working it in there. And right, we just start waxing off. Wax on. Yeah, you knew that was coming. You can see that hopefully. I'll just turn that around. So you can see the wax sticking to the surface, which is, that's a good thing. Look, don't be too precious about how thick it's going on. You can't put enough on there, put it that way. Yes, if the container's been out in the sun and it's a big dribbly mess, no, don't go and wipe it on as a liquid. But look, that's just leaving little dents in the surface. Almost no smell for this, just a little bit of the wax. So we're going to apply the wax as we are here, just go in circular motions, backwards and forwards, across. Just make sure you get it all. It's not hard, it's only a little part. It's not like it's an entire car or something. But make sure, those hard to get areas, or the areas that are not so easy, remember to spend the time, and particularly on these corners, on these edges and things. So make sure you do that. Make sure you, if you guys were sitting over there, it'd be easier. I'm right-handed. Okay. So we'll just go over that. Put that aside for 27.5 seconds. And let's start getting some wax on this one as well. I personally, what I'll do with that, I'll show you. I just have a bit of just an old candle here that I use for surfaces of machinery and things for my saw benches and things, and you can just go around and, this is quite porous, this timber, so just go around and get a bit of wax on there. It's not going to hurt, is it? People go, oh, you're going overboard. Well, you know how much time we spent making that mould. That's taken a long time, and you want to be doing everything you can to get the best result. Otherwise, why bother? Do it once do it right. Doesn't quite come out right, well, as long as you tried. You can see the areas where it's sort of missing down here. So you just get right down in there because we don't want that resin to, if it does squeeze past, to get into those pores and hook into it. We will we'll put wax as a wax, and a lot of guys use Play-Doh, and I might try that actually. I haven't used it. I usually just use a bit of wax and stuff, and you can get some, warm it up, put it in the gap, scrape it off. I'll show you both ways anyway. I'll show you what I've done before, and then we'll use a bit of the more common method out there that people do. And I guess it's common because it's readily available. It's nice and easy. It's not so messy as wax, wax and things. But we'll have a play around with a couple of ways. Show you what I do. And again, make your own decision. Have fun doing it. If you've got a better way, drop a comment or share it. Happy to, if you've got some ideas, you want to send me an email. I can't remember what the email address is, but we've got one. So I know it's in the notes of video 1. So feel free to go back there, and as I've said before, while you're watching this stuff, feel free to, if you've got a project you're working on, you don't mind me putting a photo up and sharing it, as I did recently with the local guy's bike, Alex, CB 400 FOUR FOUR. If I get that right, Alex? Not everyone does, right? But yeah, so lovely bike, and it's nice to share. It's good to get on, get ideas out there, and share the ideas. This is the back side, the dark side of the moon that we're not going to be dealing with, so I'll just leave the wax on there as well. Sort of see it, like I said, that 20 mil or so on that side. Come back to this side here, and we've got hard wax all over that, which we probably don't really need, so let's just get our handy dandy rag. If you're at all interested, that's the list of fibre and steel thicknesses from the BMW bike, all within spec. No one cares. Alright, it's there for all to see. So let's get going in there. And you're wanting to leave this on the surface, you're not trying to wipe it all off, so let it sit there. This will dry out, that's what we want. The shed in here is quite cool, but it is quite dry because I do run air conditioners in here, and it is all reasonably insulated. I'm just going to put that aside. Perfect place to put it is on top of a 2009 BMW K1300 gearbox clutch. Obviously, place to rest it. So I'm just going to go over this again. I've got gloves on too. That first layer, very important to keep all the oils from your hand off the mould after you've used the wax and grease remover. A lot of oils and things, natural oils in your hands. Just for those of you that are taking extra special care of your skin and using your various skin products, well, they're not going to help the job. To be honest, they're just going to create weak spots where things come off. Things like barrier creams, just be very careful of those sort of things. They'll leave. That's a bit like sunscreen wanted, isn't it? Anyway, just going over, making sure I get all those little edges and things. I'm going to do with this. I want to leave this exposed. I'm not too worried about dust in here, but when I come back in, just remind me that I've got to knock the dust off it with the air gun just lightly. Whoops, he goes. I don't know what, just try and hit this first coat really heavy. As I said earlier, this is the first layer of probably 8 or 10 coats. One in the evening, one in the morning, or one in the morning. So one in the morning, let it dry all day, come back in the evening, do another coat. And I'll show you what to do in between coats, because we're going to just very gently buff it to a shine before we put the next layer on. So that's, I hope you can sort of see that. The lid's on the floor if you're looking for it. So hopefully I'll just put a bit of a pattern on there. Hopefully you can, I quite like that actually. Gee, that'd be a nice colour, wouldn't it? A pearly colour. Alright, let's leave it at that. So there's layer number 1 on there. So we've got layer number 1. I've written over here wax 1. Can you see that? Done that over there. No, you can't see that. Of course you can't. There you go. Wax 1. Layer 1. And we've got layer 1 on there as well. So good night, and I'll see you again tomorrow evening after a hard day's work, an enjoyable hard day's work. Right, sorry my head's cut off, but anyway, filming with a tripod. Toweling material, alright, so don't use a microfiber cloth for this. You don't want to be using toweling. Some good advice from someone I know. Just grab some gloves so I don't get my oily fingerprints all over this. And we're going to gently buff this wax, and we're going to crack on with the next coat. Now, once I buff this off, I'm not going to bore you with the next 7 or so coats, probably 7 or 9 coats, because I think probably already putting you to sleep as it is. So anyway, toweling material, make sure it's clean. Not trying to take it off, you're just trying to remove the sort of dusty outside the layer. This is not rocket science. Just trying to get a little bit of sheen to it. Again, not trying to remove all that hard work you've already done. Be nice if it got a bit of it in. Anyway, an issue I'll deal with later. Feel the difference. Feel the difference of where you have it polished and where you have it. Again, I'm just using this, cost me about, I don't know, $10, one of these little, you can see that, the flat bearing. It's really helpful when you're doing something like this, and when you get to this stage and you're working on your piece, turning it around, painting, spraying, fiberglassing, whatever it is. It's just nice and handy for it to be able to move around without it being difficult. So, what am I going to spend on this? Maybe 2 minutes now. See, some of the excess sort of coming off the powder, sort of finished the leaves. That's good. I'm barely touching it, it's just enough to buff that surface. Just remember your edges too. jag on an area where you haven't been. Where you have been, suddenly you can sort of feel the rag free up, the cloth. Just turn it occasionally, and straight away the difference already just with that. Just do a spot here, so I'll give you a little light on that. A little bit harder than somewhere else. This is as much as you want to gauge to. Feel a little bit of it. So it's still a little bit of on the surface here. Just gently, just all over. Let's get the next coat on it. Do the same. Simple here. Finish or anything on this part, it's just you can just see there's a little, I can see from here, I don't know if you can see that, but taking a lot off, but certainly, there we go, you can see, hopefully you can see that sort of patch there, a little bit white cloudy, just the excess come off, and that's what you're after. So I'm going to switch you off and I'll see you in 3 days. So we now have the centre board, you can see that now, and we're going to be working on this side. And filling this gap here, there's a couple of things you can use. One is to use plasticine. I think if you watch some of Dan's videos, Dan from Cafe Racer Garage, Dan uses plasticine and goes into explaining the difference between using the actual plasticine brand versus just a generic one. So good video to watch and great channel to watch, actually very inspirational. Thank you, Dan. So I'm actually going to do something a little bit different. I am going to warm up some candle wax here. And I'm going to fill this gap here. This board's been waxed, what have we got, 10 times so far, and same with the plug, the mould. So that's been waxed 10 times and polished back. So we're ready to fill this little gap through here, fill this gap down through here, and then scrape the excess off, and then I'll go over the whole thing again with a couple of coats of mould release. So that candle wax is really just a filler more than a, it's going to help release as well. Just going back a step, so the whole mould was coated with the mould release before I put this backbone on, or dividing panel, whatever you want to call it. Also, where I've cut it out, you've got this sort of very rough textured edge, and I've been using this candle here This is my wax that I use on machine surfaces, so you just run it across the metal and it helps with timber sliding across it. And all I've done with inside there, if I haven't shown you already, is just basically fill it like that with wax, a bit more than that. But yeah, filled it up with wax, and also put a little bit of mould release on there as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give all this area a little bit of a blow down with the air gun, and then I'm going to melt this wax into here, and then I'm going to very carefully, I'll actually mask very lightly around here, just so I don't get it all running down and the hot wax taking off what I've put on. So anyway, I'm just going to put you on time lapse in a second, and you can watch it all unfold. And yeah, so just if you're wondering, I've gone down like so, you can see that. Just make sure that's in shot. So the reason I've got my mould elevated slightly is I'm actually going to run the fiberglass slightly past, probably, I don't know, whatever it hangs over, but I need another, say, 5 to 10 mil down here, so that when I put it on the bike, depending on where I place it, then I can cut this curve exactly to suit the bike. So that's just going to come down. The base of the hump will be done afterwards as a separate piece, tabbed in from the inside, painted, blah blah blah, tidied up, so you won't see all that. But anyway, that's the way I'm doing it. It's a little bit different to most, I guess, but that is the reason why I've elevated it there. I need to come back around here, down under here. Not all the way, but my little brake light's going to go down here, so I just want it to wrap down and around. As far as the front goes, at this stage I really only need to come down, I'll probably say 20-30 mil. My seat back's going to go on there, and then the material from the seat back will either tuck down in front of that lip there, so you'll only see a little bit of it, if any of it, or otherwise it'll just come slightly back over here. Craig from Doghouse Customs, or the Doghouse, sorry Craig, he did one recently very similar out of metal, but he brings the seat back over the top here, and he's wrapped his material around there. I quite like that, so might be stealing that idea as well. We'll just see how it goes. But lots of options anyway, and it's just one thing at a time, and don't get too rigid on how the next fit's going to go. And been playing around with some shape on the bike as well, with the tank, and so we'll get onto that shortly. Just excuse my mess, I've got a few things around at the moment. Just had the BMW put all that back together, and just bleeding all the brakes and clutch and things like that, getting that ready to go and get what we call a roadworthy, and get it registered, and a new set of tyres on Monday, Tuesday. So a little clip coming up of a little test. So that was the mighty KLR, and that one was a very quick first of the BMW, just to make sure that all the nuts and bolts are tight. That's what we do, isn't it? Anyway, over the time lapse for you lot. I just thought this might be interesting to put on in just normal speed, so I'm just going to clean this up across here. I'll show you what I've done, if you're interested. Right, so I've got my melted wax here, I've got my little, these are $1 at the chemist. Just heat up the melted wax, and then it'll go in very, very thinly. If your gap's not too big, you can just get a couple little passes. If you're finding it's just running straight through, just let your wax cool a little bit. You can see it's starting to just go cloudy. It's still going to come out, but it's just a bit thicker, so it'll sort of hold its form when it hits the colder board. So that's all I do, just gently dribble it around inside that groove. I've got a good old popsicle stick here. I just chopped one in half, put a very slight taper on the end. That just gives me like a little chisel point. I'll just let that part cool a little bit. I'm just going to put a rag underneath my hard work there. Okay, I'll try and get this so you can see it. Right, so I've got my wax in the just in the gap that was left, and I've quite simply come up and just very gently. You don't want to push too hard against your mould. You're just trying to get a nice square. Scrape the edges, so I'll put it back into the candle. I might just do this one so you can see it this way here. Okay. And you can just hopefully see that. Really easy just to gently come around. And, oops. Scrape the excess back into there. Not that I really need it. Dave's making a mess. So we're really looking for a really nice, sharp point there. So holding the stick nice and flat against the board, just coming up against our mould. Just give it a few passes on that. Again, we're going to go over just nice and gently. It's just the weight of the the hand with the popsicle stick, nice block stick, whatever you want to call it, icy pole. And you know, if you're not sure whether you've got enough in there, just go over it with another gentle pass, but just in there. Use this one. It's got a very slight angle that way, slight taper, which means it's not pressing so much against the mould. Just a couple of passes. I don't want to scratch my mould and things, but I do want to fill any of the little chips in the wood here. Smooth as silk. Smooth as. Right. Just come back along this one. You can see that. I'm just going to go the other way because my tape on the stick, so you guys can see what's going on. So hopefully see what's going on. And as long as you got that stick nice and flat, you're not going to create a V, you're not going to dig down into it, so you can create a nice smooth square transition between those two surfaces. Just be careful with the lumps, like I did there, I had a bit extra liquid on there, so I just want to peel a lot of that away first, because I don't want it to peel out the do a bit of a clean up. If you've got dribbles and stuff, get rid of them, because you really want that mould release wax to be your final coating. You don't want dribbles and runs. Yeah, right. Just get that here, like scraping over. Should have a really nice transition there. A little bit of extra stuff around here on the board. I'm just going to scrape that off. Sorry to bore you. Okay, so hopefully that gives you an idea. Just bring the stick up here. One last pass. Be a bit particular, you know, you've spent a lot of work doing the mould and everything. I know I have. Take your time. Get it right. Alright. It looks like you can see the sort of what we call shelling along the edge of the board here. I think we've got all of that now, so I'm just going to do a bit of a tidy up here with the vacuum. Melt all our wax back down. Set our candle alight again. Let's get that to form a nice little happy birthday to you. Alright. Anyway, that's what I'm doing. That's the way I do it. So I'm just going to do a quick clean up here, and you guys will get to see me do the next stage, which will be putting. Well, I'm going to put some more wax on this. So I'm going to put some more of the mould release wax onto this now. I won't bore you with it, and then I'll come back, and when we come back, you'll see me put the first coat onto the mould. We'll be back soon. Alright, as I finish putting the final coat of wax on here, I just wanted to show you a little bit of a trick. So where we put that wax, I know it's wax, but we want the mould release wax. So I'm getting a bit of what I call the butter. Okay, create a bit of butter. And just make sure you go along that edge there. And just go along that wax and really get a good coating of butter, what I call butter in there, so the mould release wax. That's important, just make sure that's fully sealed in. And what that earlier stage of melting the wax down in there, as opposed to other products, wax really gets into the pores of things because it's a liquid, rather than pressing a solid in there. So you're basically pouring something in there and it's filling every little void. And what we're trying to really stop is any of that resin finding something to attach to, because it will bite in. You know, I mean, resin is incredible stuff. And fiberglass is kind of porous. I mean, fiberglass is almost like little straws, and it will suck moisture down into it. So the little bits of fibre get down there, it'll just draw the resin down into it. So you want to really make sure that, you know, that's where I find the wax over other things I've used. You know, clay and stuff like that, it's good, but I just find you get a really nice, it's simple to use, it's clean and tidy, it's quick and easy. You know, okay, I'm using one of these, but you know, if you haven't got one of those, just warm up. And I really like these little cheap little candles with the little metal strips, with the metal tray, because obviously you can just warm the tray up. Put all those in gloves now. Anyway, so this is the final coat of wax going onto the mould. Before, let's get a bit more of that butter going on the surface. It's quite cool in here. I've got the air conditioner going in my workshop because I'm a sook, and I'm in Queensland. So just the final good thick layer of wax. I'm going to give this a very light buff, but it's not going to get the same sort of real high polished buff that the other layers do. Previous 10 layers of wax. Just really make sure you're getting into all those edges. My biggest concern is the wrap over the edge. I've got to be careful of that it doesn't fold down and bite into my to the base of the mould. I'm talking too much again, so anyway. Okay, that's me. That's that stage done. Come back once that's hardened. Just going to give this lay, most of the other layers I've sort of given 8 hours between. This one I'll just give it a couple of hours and then I'll come back and, as I said, it's quite cool in here, that should go off quite quick. And once it does, we'll be able to get into that and put the first coat of paint down, which is the gel coat. So go through that stage and look at a couple of things with the gel coat. That's very important. Coming right up. See you soon. Right, before I do the next stage, which will be on time lapse, I just want to go through the step-by-step process before I do it, so that as I'm doing it, you know what I'm doing. So next step, I'm going to give this a very light polish off with my toweling material. And that'll just buff that up, ready to apply the next coat. The first thing I want to do is make sure I've got some acetone to clean any tools that I want to clean, that I use. I may use this, I may not. If you see me use this, then I'll be putting it into some acetone afterwards just to soak it, to make sure the resin doesn't gum up and stop it from, that's able to spin, okay? So that aside, the next step is to put, in my case, a polyester flow coat. Now, I mentioned earlier, I do apologise, I mentioned gel coat. Gel coat goes inside the female mould. This is our male plug mould at the moment. So we have the next step that we're going to put on is our polyester flow coat. We're going to mix that with our catalyst, which is our MEKP catalyst, at 2%, okay? And that's what we're going to use on the next coat. That's a white flow coat. It's going to go on as thick as we can get it. It's probably going to go on, let's say a couple of millimeters thick. Probably somewhere around, help me out here, you Americans, 1/16 of an inch on there, 1.5 mil to 2 mil, so 16 plus a bit. As thick as we can get it on there, nice and thick on there. We just put it on with a really, I've got to go and get a few old brushes, so you'll see me using the sort of wooden handled ones. I won't use this, but we're going to need a stiff bristled brush to put it on, or a brush, I should say, to put it on. So we're going to put that on as thick as we possibly can. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a small batch. After that's had about 10-15 minutes to start to solidify, to go off on the surface, because it's a 2%, it's going to be quite a fast acting, it's going to kick pretty quick, as they'd say. Then I'm going to use some polyester flow coat, and I'm going to add some talc. And I'm going to, you'll see me mixing up in my pots. It won't be these pots because these cost me a small arm and a leg, but I'll be using the waxed paper cups. All right. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using the polyester flow coat with the MEKP, but before I put the MEKP in, which is the catalyst, I'm going to add talc powder. Okay, the talc powder basically creates a thick, gooey substance which allows you to do coving, and coving is where we want to put some shape into. So when I paint this originally, it's going to get painted all out over here, all over the mould, and then I'm going to come around and coving using one of these sticks. Basically, I'm going to form a curve between the mould and the backbone. All right, I'm going to form a really nice cove in there, because fiberglass does not and will not go into a sharp corner like that very well at all. So by putting the flow coat over first, it creates the shell on the inside of the mould when we take it off. Then by putting the flow coat and the talc, we create a paste that allows us to put this sort of paste around here and form this cove. Then we're going to fiberglass over that, and we're going to use chop strand matting, which we're going to tear, okay? Don't cut little squares, just tear it off. You want it to be just broken up pieces. This does not have to look really pretty, okay? You want it to be nice, but it doesn't have to be pretty. It's the inside of the mold that you're looking for. So that's what we're going to be doing. You're going to be on time lapse watching what's going on next, but I just wanted to run you through what's going to happen and what I am using. All right. Okay, so first stage was to flow coat, a heavy, very heavy coat, probably at least 2 millimeters thick. And then we did some coving with the flow coat and talc powder. And then finally we were fiberglassing with the resin. So using a chop strand fiberglass and a polyester resin. So that's all wet there. Down along here we've got all that tape that I put along there just so it would extend down past it. So that's worked out well. We've got back underneath the back of that there quite nicely, coved in there. Give you an idea of that cove that we're looking for. See that curve down in there in that corner. That's the sort of round we're looking for, and that's what we've got up along that backbone as well. And then down in the front here as well, you can see the cove. So that coving just allows the fiberglass strands like to curve, they don't like to bend. So by putting those coves in, hopefully we're going to get a much stronger mould. Now tomorrow night when I come back out, because we're using polyester and it's polyester resin and it is not waxed, quite simply going to come out, we're going to put another couple of layers on. Now I reckon we're probably sitting around 1, 2, 3 layers on this at the moment, a little bit more in some parts, but basically in my mind the way I'm looking at it is we're probably at about 3 layers, and I want this to be probably a good 5 millimeters thick. Okay, now tomorrow I'm going to cut the back off some of these blocks I've just made up, and I'm going to cut the corner off those, and they're going to sit up in there like so. Cut the ends off them, and we're going to make some little ribs to go around, and that's just going to help support when you pull this off, stop it flexing and things. So as I say, we'll chop that back off, then we'll make up some flow coat with talc, and again we'll just glue them into place, and that'll be the last thing we do, and pretty much just give them a single coat of fiberglass over the top just to attach them, and they're really just going to act as little backbones just to help support it. So probably the hardest part on a mould is when you are releasing it, obviously from the buck, from the original mould, and you know, you want to flex it and all the rest of it, and by pulling and trying to pull it off sometimes, just having a bit of this sort of thing, you can support that sort of 2-inch 50mm edge around there, and where these are positioned you can get a little wedge in there and drive around, and it will pull it off rather than just flexing that tab. So pretty easy to do, a little bit of extra work, but really, you know, definitely worth it. So we'll do that tomorrow night. So good night all, we'll see you tomorrow.